Wanted 3 Non-Nerds, Episode 2. My name is Nick Tesla. His name is
Brian McFadden.
And we are also joined by our third non-nerd, our fill-in non-nerd for the day. His name is going to be Alf. Hey! I gotta forget Alf's fucking noises.
I don't remember what he sounds like. It's been too long.
Oh, he's so awesome. Unfortunately, Rich Colazzo is not joining us today. He, we'll just say he's MIA for the moment.
Prior engagements.
Yep.
Outside of our control.
Yep. Outside of our control for sure. So thank you for joining us. And today we're gonna touch on a few different topics. I guess we'll start with Ebola. I guess that's a great place to start. So
yeah, it's a great distraction from other issues.
Mm-hmm. So what do you got? What are your thoughts on it here, Bri? If you could.
My thoughts are all over the place currently on Ebola because the U.S. government patented a strain of Ebola.
Oh, I did not know that.
I mentioned it very briefly last week.
Did you? Okay.
U.S. patent number US 201-202-51502 is for the human Ebola virus species and compositions and methods thereof. It was filed October 26th of 2009 and published October 4th of 2012, shortly before the CDC began freaking out saying, there's going to be a mass Ebola outbreak. Oh my God.
Wow. So that's pretty crazy.
That's pretty convenient.
I'll have to bring that up to the person that is very close to me that works at the patent office. I'm sure they'd be interested to look up that patent.
And I'll also throw out the coincidence, 2012, right around that time, wasn't that also right around the time Obama drew up that executive order stating that he has given himself the authority to detain sick American citizens or American citizens he believes to be sick? It's all happening at the same time.
I think I do remember hearing that.
That's what I'm looking at with this.
Okay. Yeah, it is.
Patient Zero is dead, by the way.
Yes, Patient Zero has died, unfortunately. They said that he was actually getting, he had been upgraded from critical to serious condition, and they had put him, once that had happened, they figured, hey, you know, we're going to put him on this new trial Ebola cure, this new trial Ebola drug, and as soon as they put him on that, within 2 days he was dead. So I don't know if you can really trust the trial Ebola cures, but I don't know. There is definitely a lot to be talked about, a lot to be said about Ebola. I got something sitting right in front of me. It was actually, I believe it was released by the AP, the AFP, sorry. Basically talking about, they talked to a doctor, a top doctor that dealt with the AIDS situation back in the 80s and the outbreak of AIDS and how it spread rapidly and almost out of control. And they still don't have a cure for AIDS. You know, it's still just you're treated for it. Even though
I'm gonna just throw this out there on the patent topic. The U.S. government in the late 96, 97, I believe it was published. I forget the number off the top of my head. It's something like patent 5679677 or something like that. You can look it up. It's actually called Cure for AIDS.
Yeah. Well, they also hold the cure for cancer as well.
They hold the cure for many man-made cancers.
Well, this guy, this doctor they talked to, basically, I can give you a little quote here. Basically, this man, who is he? He's a little aid agency. I don't know. Basically, what the guy said, I'm not able to look through this and find his quote at the moment. But basically, what he said was, oh, here you go. I found a quote. Okay, this is basically the CDC director. Sorry, the Center for Disease Control director.
Oh.
Okay, he told the heads of the United Nations, World Bank, and International Monetary Fund (IMF) the other day, we have to work now so that it is not the world's next AIDS. Then he went on to say, I would say that in 30 years I've been working in public health, the only thing like this has been AIDS. He added, warning of a long fight ahead. So if this is like the next AIDS, then this isn't really the type of thing that can be taken lightly, I guess you could say, because
it's easier to spread. You don't have to have sexual intercourse with the person. You can just open wounds, and some doctors believe it may have already gone airborne.
But see, think of what I'm thinking is.
I'm thinking the movie Outbreak.
See, we have one confirmed case in the United States so far. One guaranteed confirmed case.
I think two now.
We may be at two.
Confirmed.
But see, that to the American public, they may look at something like that and say, we're in a technological age. We're in a medically advanced age. Nothing to worry about. It's 2 cases. One of the guys already dead, so like we're almost good. If we can keep people from Africa coming here, then we're good, right? But if you really start to look at what's being done about it, and that's also what the what this guy was saying, with the CDC director, Tom Frieden, what he was saying is that the response that has been going on right now to Ebola has been a very hesitant response, a very lackluster response.
See, actually, you see me jotting a note down here that I was going to mention when you were finished, but I'm going to cut in right there.
Good.
Because what I was just thinking about, the current media spin, if you can even call it that, their position, they're talking about it. Are they talking too much or too little at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think they're talking about it, and they're talking about it enough as far as how serious it is, but they're not talking about how it's not being handled very properly. It's not being handled well.
It's not
almost
being handled
to the
at
point
all.
where, and think about this. This is kind of where my mindset starts from. Is you hear about the global elite and how they've put out many different things. You've heard Bill Gates say it. I think you've even heard Oprah say it. You've heard many very rich people. Of course, you've heard Ted Turner say it. Rockefeller, exactly. Rothschild.
They put it in their
You've heard all of these people say how they need to, in order for the Earth to thrive and survive, the population of human beings on planet Earth needs to go down by, I think they say 90 to 95%. Now, if you look at how the Ebola thing is being handled, it's really sad because if you think about 5 years from now, if you're the type of person who thinks about current events and what they could lead to, we could be seeing where every single person out there, or almost every single person out there, knows somebody personally that either has died from Ebola or is suffering from Ebola. And it's not the type of thing where you're just suffering like, oh, I can tell they're in pain, or they look like they feel like crap. No, they're bleeding out their eyeballs. It could be definitely a traumatic thing. But if you know about the global elite and their intentions, I don't want to say that they have plans, because I'm not saying that, oh, these plans are in place, and it certainly looks like plans are in place, but it could also be argued that those plans are not in place to do that, or they're not actually plans in place. It's just problems that we have in the world that haven't been solved yet. But basically, if you really look at it, the global elite would be able to control somewhat the reaction to an outbreak or a pandemic like this, and the global elite want the population of the world to go down 90-95%.
It's a good way to do it.
That's an amazing way to do it.
Because you can make the general public
go out of
think
control.
it's totally natural, that nobody did this by plan. It's totally
Plus,
natural.
if they also own the patent, or they own the cure to Ebola, all they have to do is almost vaccinate themselves, so they can't get Ebola. So everybody dies off, and they're the only ones left standing because they're the ones vaccinated. So it's definitely, it's kind of scary to think about, but I think if we spread the word is definitely being spread about Ebola, but if we're all careful, like I said, I think I said on last week's show, like when do we get to the point of everybody seeing people walking around on American streets wearing surgical masks? Well, is it not maybe time to start doing that now, just to be safe, to make sure that because like you said, they said it could be airborne. You're hearing that, or there's a report out there that it could be airborne. Well, if it's airborne, then it's probably time to start wearing those masks. Just because we only had 2 confirmed cases and one of the guys is dead in this country, who's to say that 6 months from now it's not at 100 people? And we're like, that's 100 people. We have 300 million people in this country. 100 people turns into 1,000 people within a month after that. It may slowly start to build, and you're like, it's nothing to worry about. They got it under control.
But then the snowball effect.
Snowball effect, and once it starts getting out of control and you realize they don't have a handle on it and they're not actually able to treat it, or they're not able to stop it from spreading, that's when you kind of have an issue. And I think that's when it's kind of like, oh my God, how come we didn't take more precautions earlier than this? How come we didn't stop this from really spreading to here? You think no, well they wouldn't be stupid and allow it to come here. Like you hear a lot of people saying,
unless it was by design.
It definitely could be by design.
I actually read an article this morning about an NBC News crew in North Jersey that they are under 21-day quarantine because one member of the crew may or may not have had contact with an Ebola victim.
Yep. See, I think honestly, and it's happened before. I don't know if it was a design, or this is a design or a plan to mistreat the Ebola outbreak, but it honestly seems like it definitely seems like, if anything, the ineptness of government and world government organizations and international organizations that are supposed to be covering this, the Red Cross and things of that such. I don't think that they're really, I don't want to say taking it serious enough, but they're being inept with it like they've been with everything else, like Hurricane Katrina. You know what I'm saying? You would have never thought before.
It only took a week to get water.
Exactly. You would have never thought
only a week for water.
that there would be people out there like struggling to survive. We live in one of the most advanced countries in the world. After a hurricane hits one of our major cities, you would think within a day or two there would be massive troops, and maybe not troops, habeas corpus, but there would be massive aid on its way within a day or two, and there would be nobody suffering, and everybody would be rescued and saved, and this is the greatest country in the world, and we take care of our citizens.
Well, you
and
saw the same.
It was ineptness. It wasn't that they didn't. It's not that. And there's a lot of people who think that the whole response to Hurricane Katrina is a conspiracy in itself, and I don't look at that as a conspiracy. I look at that as ineptness. I look at
failure.
Exactly, and same with 9/11. Like 9/11, I believe there could have been a conspiracy involved in everything. But if anything, the guaranteed truth and the admitted truth about 9/11, as of right now, is a failure of intelligence, an intelligence failure. You know,
I will agree. I agree with the intelligence failure statement, but I think we disagree on what we mean when we say intelligence failure.
Yes.
I believe the intelligence failure was the lack of intelligence. Whoever answered the call at NORAD from Dick Cheney, when Dick Cheney said, "Stand down, do not shoot down those planes," whoever listened to that order was an idiot.
Yeah, but when you're taking an order from your
vice president,
you have
you took an
to
oath
follow
to
that
uphold.
order.
You took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not uphold what the White House tells you to do.
But when you're at that kind of
when they are not the same thing,
when you're at that kind of position and you realize that war may be imminent and we've literally just been attacked, it's as if we were hit by a nuke. That guy at NORAD isn't thinking, well, I need to be following the Constitution right now, and if the president or the vice president calls me to do something that I feel disagrees or doesn't align with the Constitution, well, I need to do what the Constitution says right now. No, that person's like, we've just been attacked. The president or the vice president calls me and says, I need to do this or I need to do that. I'm doing it because we've just been attacked. I don't want to be looked at as, oh, I'm trying to aid the enemy who just attacked us. I want to be looked at as I'm doing what's asked of me by my superiors, and especially if the president or the vice president or the secretary of defense calls me and says, you need to do this, hand over control to me now, you're going to do it. 99.9% of people out there, especially if you're in that high of a government position, you're screened to make sure that if something like that were to happen, you're willing to hand over control to the people in charge. You know, and you're screened to make sure you're not going to hand over control to some jackass who's trying to make sure that we don't actually shoot down these planes. So you would think that the vice president wouldn't be that jackass.
I can shoot down that theory too. People need to think for themselves and not blindly follow. I understand following orders, but you need to not blindly follow orders, because I can give it to you. Here's a historical version for the people into this side of things. Adolf Hitler. For the people that aren't so much into the political side of things, maybe you're into movies, science fiction, Star Wars, Emperor Palpatine.
Right. Well, there's one quote that I actually had to tell. There's a woman that I work with. She's probably, I believe she's 73 years old. So if you understand the generation that she comes from and kind of probably the mindset that she has towards world affairs and political affairs, I basically told her the other day, because I remember talking to her, and one day she was saying something about a pot dealer. Well, he belongs in jail, and he's a criminal, so he belongs in jail. And I said, well, what if that pot dealer is literally just only dealing pot to medical marijuana patients, and he's literally just trying to help people? Do you really think that he's an evil person? She said, well, yes, the law says that he's breaking the law and he needs to go to jail. And I said, well, what happens when that person goes to jail and comes out as a criminal, when before that they were just trying to help people and they weren't an actual criminal? She said, well, no, that's the law. If you don't agree with that law, then you got to try and at least change that law. And basically, I thought about that for a while. I thought about how it was so easy for her to just say, well, the law says this, so the law is automatically right. We voted that law. And I tried to tell her, well, there's lobbyists, there's things as lobbyists. Sometimes there's special interest groups that affect a law going into practice, or a law becoming a law. Whereas it's not just the public saying, we demand this law because it's the right and just thing to do. There's so much politics involved, but she didn't understand that. So I watched a Wayne Dyer documentary maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and heard him say something, and I went in and told her, and she still didn't get it. And I thought it was funny, but the knowing that I told her the quote, she will eventually get it, is the quote was, everything that Hitler did was legal. Everything that the founding fathers did in this country was illegal. Everything that the founding fathers did to form this country was illegal.
Yeah, they committed high treason.
Was considered treason.
But
it was against the law. It wasn't that it wasn't morally right, but it was against the law. What Hitler was
How do you
doing-
decide whose law you're going to follow? Do you want to follow Germany's
Well, that's
law? Do you want to
what-
follow Britain's law? Do you
Well,
want
but
to
that's
follow
what I'm
the
saying,
colonists'
and that's what
own
she
law?
tried. That's what she tried saying was, well, who made those laws? Well, who said
The
that Hitler's
people that were
laws
here,
were
as
right?
she said, the people that
But
were
what I was
here
trying to
put
explain
those
to her
laws
was
into effect.
that just because a law is in effect or there's a law doesn't mean that you definitely need to follow that law because that's the moral thing to do. Sometimes it's okay to use your own conscience and decide for yourself whether a law is just or not, and decide for yourself whether or not you're going to follow that law. Because all the people that followed the law in Germany either ended up dead. If you were Jewish, you either ended up dead, or if you weren't Jewish, you ended up as basically
Yeah.
a shill who just said, you know what, this is okay.
Hold
I
on.
accept this because the law says that this is okay.
This bothers me. I am not Jewish, but this bothers me. Everyone, when they talk Hitler, Germany, Holocaust, it's always the Jewish. He killed blacks. He killed any minority he could. He killed Freemasons. He killed Christians. It wasn't just the Jews.
Yes, you're right. And
He
also,
killed a lot of people. Anyone that he didn't see as his
You're right.
Aryan,
exactly.
perfect.
He thought about the Aryan race, but you also have to remember, and this is it blows your mind when you learn something like that, and then you find out this, or you come across this, is he had African Americans in his army. He had African Americans that worked for him, even some up, not at very high positions, but at somewhat high positions. Like I don't want to say, I honestly don't know, but I could probably go out on a limb and guess and say that he probably even had a few Jews working for him. Because, you know what I'm
Easily.
saying?
There's
Exactly.
always collaborators.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So,
Hey, I'll let you live. You turn all your friends in. Tell me where they're hiding.
yeah. The whole,
I think if we were to, I've talked with a lot of people at work. Me and Tesla used to work together. Those of you who don't know that.
Mhm.
Remember Leo, the server?
Mhm.
He was. He actually believes that World War III is imminent. New guy that we got over there is ex-army. He's telling me scale from 1 to 10. Realistically, he sees it as an 8 to 9 right now. That we will be going into World War III within 3 years, and that this will be the time that foreign troops are deployed on U.S. soil,
Yep.
and we will finally, the people of America, no TV bullshit, you will finally see what real war is like, and I don't think any of us are prepared for that.
yeah. Trust me, there's plenty of people. A lot of the people who were prepared for December 21st, 2012 are a lot more prepared than they might realize for something like this. When they can go in
How about the
bunker
Y2K?
and lock themselves in, and they got food, and they don't have to worry about being attacked or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Y2K.
Okay, all right. Like, they lock themselves in, they have food, they have all this wonderfulness, and then what happens when they say, I don't hear anything, maybe it's safe, and they come out of their little bunker and they're in China Part 2.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
well, where am I? What is this?
Yeah.
What's all these red stars? Like,
I look at it as right now, within the next 3 months, the possibility of World War III starting, an actual war and a war of physical aggression. Let's just put it that way, because I know you just learned about there's another type of war that has been waged on the public for a long time now that many people are not even aware of.
I knew of
Yeah.
it, but
Well, people are aware of
just
aspects
read
of it,
the
but
document
don't
from
understand that it is actually a whole, like, an actual
Yeah.
war.
Yeah,
People think
it
there's battles
encompasses
out there,
everything.
and they don't understand that all these battles are actually part of a silent war that's being waged on us. But the way that I look at it is that within the next 3 months, the chance of World War III.
Anyone who wants to hear any more about that can Google Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It was a military document that got leaked, dated May 1979.
Yeah.
Very, very, very intriguing.
Yeah, very
stuff.
interesting. If you understand electronics, if you ever worked
Or
with
economics.
economics as well. But if you've ever worked with electronics and you don't understand politics or the world and how it works, I definitely, if you understand circuits and literally how a circuit board works, you could read this book and have probably a grasp better than 90% of the world, a grasp on the world that's better than 90% of the world. Or
It's
better
not
understanding
like
than
a
90% of the world.
long, drawn-out book. It's only a few pages. It's an official document. You can find it on Google. You can get it on PDF. It's free. It's posted, leaked all over the internet. It's been there for years. You can find it in other books. Jesse Ventura's 63 Documents. Government doesn't want you to read. William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse. A lot of books have republished this document. It is out there. Just search it.
Keep in mind, a lot of people will tell you that it's nonsense. Anybody that's come across it, I don't say anybody, because a lot of people that come across it are like, wow, this is very powerful. It's crazy that I haven't even heard of this before. But you also come across other people who think it's just nonsense, or think that it's how do you put it? It's almost just like a distraction. It's not real. It was just something somebody made up and to distract people who are conspiracy minded, where they would come across that and think they have the answer and this is it, and it's nothing. But if you understand it, you really look at it, you understand it. If you feel like you have a good understanding of it, and then you start to really view world politics and the economy, the world economy, and the economy even down to a local level, you start to really understand. Or the whole book or the whole paper has a whole new understanding or a whole new meaning to it when you really start to look at how societal structures and economical structures are set up in this country and in the world. So it's definitely something to look at.
I'll give you a quick 2-second breakdown on that. Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars was dated May 1979. Introductory Programming Manual, Operations Research Tech Manual, serial number TM/SW7905.1. It is a official military plan to both poison and bankrupt the people of the United States, to bring down the population, institute total control, 1984 Orwellian style control. Google it, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars.
It's definitely crazy. It's definitely something to check out.
And you think about the things going on all around the world today, not just war in Syria, not just tensions with Russia, not just the Ukraine, not just the Middle East, not just Ebola, USA. Put it all together, and it fits in that one document so well.
Yeah.
Now
it really
came
does.
out May 79. It says right on the first page of the document, I recall, we're celebrating the 25-year anniversary of the beginning of the Silent War. Yeah. So that would be 1954.
Yeah.
When did we get involved in the Vietnam War?
Early 60s, was it? I don't know, mid-60s.
So conveniently, like right before we stuck our nose in another country's business,
well, you need at least 10 years
they
to get
initially started
to
this.
really start to
And all the
get everything up and running.
The propaganda that the media in the U.S. at the time of the Vietnam War, I don't. If you read this document, you'll understand where I'm coming from. I can't put it into words.
Well, that's
without
also the
you.
thing. We're touching on it probably a little too much for.
Yeah.
There's, I'd have to say, 95% of people I've come across out there, even people who are conspiracy minded or who have an open mind to many different things and have come across a lot of different things. 95% of people I come across out there have never even heard of it and never seen it. So it's something definitely to check out there. What I'd like to do is maybe I actually have a friend who has let's just say government connections, and is also I'll put it this way, an electrical engineer, very, very smart when it comes to electronics and understands circuit boards, all that. I understand circuit boards and electronics and electrical engineering very slightly, enough to get by, and if I had to do any kind of work on a circuit board, on the low end of the spectrum, I could get it done. And this is the type of person that on the high end of the spectrum could probably get it done. Not on the very, very high end. He's not the smartest man in the world or anything like that. But maybe we could I could get an interview with him, or maybe bring him on the show to talk about the relation between electronics and how energy and power works, how electricity works, and the correlation to Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, because that could really. That type of a person could really explain it very well, that the average layman could understand it. Because it's the type of thing where the average layman tries to read it and it's going to be gibberish to them. It's going to almost look Egyptian. They might understand some things in it, but it's almost going to look Egyptian to the average layman after.
We've talked at length. You know the kind of stuff I've looked into, stuff I've researched, things that interest me. I had to read it 3 times.
Yeah, trust me, exactly. Like I do this with a lot of things, or with a lot of things I read. I had to read it. I would get done one page, and didn't fully understand it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that
Section
might
by
happen with a lot of
section.
other people too, whereas they might not fully understand a page, but they move on to the next page, hoping that the next page will help them understand.
Not
what
with
they
that
just read.
document. You
With
need
that
to
document, you need to go back and read each page.
take it line by line,
Exactly.
dissect it.
But,
If it doesn't look like it makes sense, read it again
Yeah.
and think worst case in your head.
Yeah.
It might make sense.
Yeah, and also have world politics and world events and economy in your mind as you're thinking about all
Yes,
that.
it's not just against the United States
makes a lot of
people,
sense.
it's the people of the world, every country. So
It makes a
it's-
lot of sense, and it really gives an answer to why so many things are upside down, and so many things, why we have all these wars of aggression, and we kill so many innocent people in this world, and we let so many people go homeless and starve on our streets, and we have trillions of dollars in aid, foreign aid that we're giving to other countries, but Detroit is literally bankrupt, and
Yeah.
like, what's the point of even going? Detroit's almost empty now, because, like, what's the point? There's no jobs, the houses are crap, you know what I'm saying? It's not the houses are crap, it's just in a dilapidated state. Detroit has been forgotten about. Detroit is our own little third world country. But it really, when you read that document and you see how messed up so many things are in this world, it really makes a lot of sense that there was a plan. And this is the plan. I'm looking at the plan. Even
Yeah.
if this isn't the exact plan, this has got to be close to the plan, because this plan explains
Maybe the cover page
why
for the plan,
so many
yeah.
things are messed up. But I will definitely get back to that one day. That's definitely something interesting to touch on, or to come back to. What I was saying though was the realisticness of, or the possibility of World War III starting, an actual war of aggression, or a declaration of a world war, or we have multiple. Because I'm sorry, but a war on ISIS I believe, I very strongly believe a war on ISIS or any kind of terror or militant group is not going to ever be labeled World War III unless
Agreed.
there's literally 30 or 40 countries that have their full military power invested into that war.
But now a war with
That could
Russia,
be called World War III. Exactly. A
Now-
war with Russia could easily be called World War III.
Now I'm gonna
as
throw
soon as
this
it
out
began.
there. Let's going back to that silent weapons.
Well,
document.
let me finish. I just wanted to say my 3-month thing. I've been trying
Your
to say for like
3-month
10.
thing?
You said that you talked to somebody, or somebody, you come across something where the guy had said that, somebody at work who used to be in the military, said that in the next 3 months, the possibility of it happening in the next 3 months is an 8 or a 9. That I don't necessarily agree with. Only because
He has deployed overseas.
I
in the
know,
Middle East.
and trust me, I've talked to many different military people, not people in the military, people who have been in the military or recently have been in the military, and I find that with a lot of them, considering that I guess they've been in the heat of the action and seen people dying and had friends die in the war, to them it's a little more serious and a little more dire, and I think you'll see a lot of these military people who come out of the military and they realize how messed up everything is and what they were fighting for was almost pointless, but they look at it as this is only going to get worse and this is only going to escalate into another world war, whereas that over the past 10 years I feel like I've heard that so many different times, is that we're on the verge of World War III. It's any time now. Like, either the economy's going to collapse and the dollar's going to die. We're on the verge. It's a month away, or months away, or maybe even weeks away. And same with World War III. It's months away or it's weeks away. The only difference is here is with the ISIS situation going on, and also I guess it's the same thing, situation in Syria and the tensions with Russia. It could definitely escalate pretty quickly, but I don't see a full-blown World War III in the next 3 months. I'd say the possibility of it is of a 1 to 10 scale. The 10 being it's guaranteed to happen, 1 it's not possible.
10 being we screwed.
I'd say probably a 2 or a 3 for the next 3 months. I say for the next year that raises to maybe a 4 or 5, and the next 5 years that raises to an 8 or a 9. But I don't see it escalating so rapidly that unless a nuclear weapon was used anywhere, that could escalate it.
Don't give them ideas. They love false flags.
That could change things literally in a heartbeat, especially if it was ever, no matter where, even if it was in the middle of the desert. If a nuke was deployed or used in the United States, immediately the United States would go into what they call World War III.
Yes.
With somebody, they would go into what they call World War III.
Whoever's
But
convenient at the time.
without that, I don't
are
see it
benefit.
being an imminent threat. I see ISIS, that that war of aggression or whatever you want to call it, that conflict right now, because it's not a declared war by Congress. But I see the ISIS situation escalating a lot more, and that getting somewhat out of control, but not being called World War III. Because this is not World War III. This is the war on terror. So World War III is almost going to be a separate entity.
Yes.
But we can see it starting to, I can definitely see it starting to rise, or the possibility of it starting to rise.
What you said
But I've also
initially-
seen it been more possible in the past 5 years than it is right now, and we didn't go into it.
This is true.
Everything calmed down.
But there was something going on now that wasn't so bad then. Your initial statement, World War III will never be, well, no war against a terror cell or a group like that will ever be called World War III. But those wars, or conflicts, I should say, that are happening all over the place right now, are distracting and destabilizing our military and spreading them out enough that World War III with a Russia or a China could be possible.
We will not go to World War III with China. I'll put my every dollar I make for the next 10 years.
Okay, what if China comes
China.
and says, you owe us $800 billion, we're here to collect?
We start paying it because we print our own money, so we start paying it. All we need is a loan from IMF or World Bank, or a guarantee of a loan, which they have no problem giving us because we do everything that they ask us. So all we need is a guarantee of a loan. See, a lot of people think that our currency is only derived from this country.
Oh, there's people that still think it's based on gold and
gold.
$4.
Exactly. A lot of people are like, well, you can't have more currency than the gold. No, we have $70-something trillion in circulation in this country, and they could put $170 trillion. It's called debasing your currency.
And no matter what they tell you,
hyperinflation is the end game, and no matter what, hyperinflation will end up. Exactly. Hyperinflation will end up showing its ugly face, especially in this country. It will end up showing its ugly face. But as long as you can artificially print money and keep it to a level where you're not out of control with it, because we went out of control for a while. Hyperinflation was right around the corner. I think they've scaled it back a little bit to the point where it's not something that is imminent and right around the corner. They've scaled it back where they're not printing so much money as to it's only a matter of time before it happens. I think they've gotten a little bit smarter with the way they print money, but it's still not backed by anything. The Federal Reserve basically contacts the IMF or the World Bank. I'm not sure which one. I'm pretty sure we deal with the IMF, but contacts them and says, "Hey, we need a loan of $15 trillion," and they say, "Okay." Type it into the computer, and in their computer and the IMF's computer, it more than likely goes from 30 trillion to 45 trillion in the United States' credit account. Got about 15 minutes. So it goes from 30 trillion to 45 trillion United States credit account. The United States says, Federal Reserve says, all right, Treasury, start printing out this money, or Mint, whatever. I'm pretty sure it's the Treasury. Start printing out. We want 3 more trillion in circulation. You know what I'm saying? It's that easy for them. So I don't even know where all this began, but
yeah, we got to figure out where we started and where we're going.
I don't know. I wanted to honestly, I really don't know where that was. If somebody wanted to finish that thought for us or wants us to finish that thought on next week's show, we definitely can. But we're going to move on right now. We're going to move on to, we got 2 more things. And one we're going to leave to talk about next week. We're not going to leave it to talk about next week. We're going to touch on a little bit today to end off the show. But we will definitely touch on it next week and probably get into it for a good 10-15 minutes because it's very interesting. It's definitely something that needs to be talked about. But getting off of the whole current event thing, there was one thing that we were going to touch on, and it's a shame Rich isn't here because I really think he would have brought something awesome to the table for it. But I'd like to touch on recurring dreams. Is there any recurring dream? And keep in mind you have maybe 5 to 7 minutes to give me your recurring dream or your breakdown of your recurring dream and what you think that it could mean in your life. So in the next 5 to 7 minutes, if you can, tell me about a recurring dream that you've had in your life that you've probably had more than 5 or 10 times in your life, and it's always very similar. It doesn't have to be the exact same dream, but always very similar themed. So go ahead.
Best one I got, been having for about 15 years, maybe close to 20 years, I can't say for sure. Long time, really long time. Like running down a dark, like cement type, damp, almost like in a sewer, like running down this narrow hallway where the wall behind me is like following me my every step, like old school scrolling Mario, how you can't go back. And there's like this door at the end of the hallway, but every time I'm like moving forward, it's just the wall behind me is moving closer, so is the door ahead of me moving farther, and it's no progress, just there. And every now and then you'll hear like a voice calling or I'll hear like a voice coming from the door calling my name, and I either wake up or I just never get to the door, or something wakes me up, and I have no idea what that's supposed to mean.
Just for a split second here, that to me is the progression of time, and that's your brain and maybe even your soul trying to explain to you the progression of time and how there is no past, there is no future. So you might get yourself hooked up on the past or even hooked up on the future and not realize that there's no such thing as the past and there's no such thing as the future. There's only now. So there's no going backwards. There's no turning around and saying, you know what, no, I want to do that again. No, that's not how time works. And there's no going, well, I want to skip ahead a little bit. I want to jump ahead a year or something. No, that's not how time works. There's only just now. There's no past, there's no future. They're only just previous versions of now and coming up versions of now. But they're only versions of now. That's what that sounds like to me. But how have you looked at that in your life? How have you?
I honestly never really thought about it much until last week when you mentioned it as a topic for this week's show.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's I've always.
But what you just said, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I've looked at dreams as this is fully what I believe about dreams, and I think it's an opportunity to learn about yourself, and there's a lot to be said about dreams. One day we'll even get into people who don't have dreams. There are people out there who aren't capable of having dreams. It's not that they don't have dreams because they don't have a creative mind or anything like that. No, there's something that's actually happened to their brain, a physical trauma that does not allow them to have dreams anymore. And there's a lot to be discovered in that, or a lot to be talked about with that, because dreams are like almost like some people would say like a guidepost or a guiding vision every night, or not every night, but a guiding vision throughout your life of where you stand, you know what I'm saying? Stuff that your subconscious knows, but it's not at the surface. So it's kind of like bubbling stuff up to the surface from your subconscious, right? Well, how come that they don't experience that? Or do they experience that, but there's some sort of a blockage in the brain that doesn't allow them to actually see it or to remember it? You know what I'm saying? How we have amnesia. Sometimes you wake up from a dream, you know you had a dream, you can't remember anything from it. So is that amnesia confounded or compounded with them to the point where they don't even believe they have any dreams? They think it's just like, it's blackness while they're asleep. But they are having those dreams, they're experiencing those dreams, but as soon as they wake up, that amnesia that most people experience is heightened so much that they can't even realize, they think I've had no dream whatsoever, and I can't have dreams, you know what I'm saying? But there's also been studies done where the dream centers in those people don't actually fire. So, but I've also heard from those people that they'll have a dream once a year or once every 6 months or something like that. So they do still experience dreams. So what happened? I don't know, there's a lot to be said about that. I always thought that dreams I've been very interested in that dreams are something else, either your subconscious, your soul, something like that, talking to you, and they're not going to talk to you like, hey, listen, this is what's going on. You need to get this right in your life. You need to check into this, and you need to really look into this, and blah, blah, blah. No, they're going to give you images, because that's how your brain speaks, is through images and experiences and events. So it's going to give you those types of things and hope that you understand what it's trying to say. And a lot of people are just like, yeah, that's a crazy dream. But a lot of other people are like, well, what is that trying to say to me? And that's what I've always tried to say, or try to figure out. What is my brain telling me? Like, I had dreams probably about a year ago, and for only a maybe 2-3 month period, it was only maybe once every couple weeks, I would have really devastating dreams of destruction. Of there was one where I was standing 2 or 3 miles from a nuclear blast that went off, and I watched the cloud go up into the sky and watched the shockwave coming at me, and knowing that I'm getting ready to die. I had another one where I think this one it relates. I feel that it has something to do with my care for people in Palestine and innocent civilians that are killed by drone strikes and things like that. I had a dream where I was like in England or something. I can't remember the setting. It was a beautiful setting, but all of a sudden all these fighter planes flew overhead, and everybody started running, and I couldn't understand why everybody was running. And I look up again, and there's bombs dropping from the fighter plane, but it's like It's not one bomb, two bombs. It's the scatter bombs that they use, the ones that they used in Iraq. The scatter bombs where it looks like 2 or 3 bombs falling down, and then they scatter into thousands of bombs. And I remember running and getting hit by one of those bombs directly in my back, and not feeling any pain from it. And it was like the weirdest dream that I ever had. But I had a bunch, probably overall 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 dreams of just destructive things like that. And it was really weird. And I was really trying to understand, why am I having these dreams? Why? Like, I don't understand why I'm having, and then they eventually stopped. I couldn't really understand and figure out why I was having those dreams, but they eventually stopped, and I was very happy that they stopped. Do you want to hear about my recurring dream? That's not my recurring dream.
I actually thought it was. That's why I was...
No, that's not my recurring dream. That's just about a year ago, some weird dreams that I was having, and I was trying to figure out. But I don't say to the average person, but to a lot of people, they'd look at that as like, that's terrifying. Like, what? Like, I'm getting hit by a nuclear blast. I'm getting hit by other bombs and stuff. But I think it came from my desire to, and it might not have. It could be something completely different. But my desire to not help people. I do want to help them. Help people that are innocent civilians that are being killed and shelled in these countries, right? I want to help these people, because it seems like everybody else just looks at them like they're evil people, and they're just innocent civilians, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think that's where it might come from. But my recurring dream, you ready to hear my recurring dream?
I am.
It's only going to take me about 2-3 minutes. My recurring dream is that I am on a bridge, and it's either one of two things. I either have to climb over... What?
Keep going.
Okay. I either have to climb over a bridge, the top of a bridge, right? And it's like a good way to think of it is, think of like, not the Ben Franklin, think of maybe like the Betsy Ross Bridge, or even like the Tacony Palmyra Bridge, right? No more drone strikes. Hashtag no more drone strikes. Damn straight.
Here you go, Michelle Obama. This is for you.
Yep.
You and your husband.
So basically, right, the dream is either I have to climb over the top of a bridge to get to the other side, and it's terrifying for me. One, because I'm scared of heights, but also it's like I'm only walking, like if you've ever seen the guys who repair bridges and how they got to walk up the side of it to get all the way to the top of it, that's terrifying. I don't care who you are, unless you climb radio towers for a life and repair those or for a living, then that's going to be terrifying to you. Well, I either have a dream where I have to go up over it that way, or I have to go over it, but instead of a road being there, it's almost like when you see a bridge that's being built before they put the road down, it's just steel girders and space in between them, like open space in between them where you could fall, like, and the open space is like 10, 15, 20 feet open space. It's not like a couple inches. It's steel girder, 10, 15, 20 feet, another steel girder, 10, 15, 20 feet, another steel girder. I got to get across it that way. And there's like there's other pieces of steel and stuff like that I can try and jump onto, but the whole thing is like terrifying.
It almost
and very hard to do.
It sounds like something trying to tell you.
But I never fall in.
If you face your fears, you can beat them.
I don't know, maybe, but I never fall in. There was one time, one dream where I fell in, and I was climbing up a ladder to get up onto the bridge where I would have to cross over it. And as I was climbing the ladder fell into the water, and it felt like it was the ocean, or I was like in the ocean, and I sunk with the ladder and sunk down until I couldn't see the light of day anymore at the top of the water, and felt myself die, and literally felt myself die in the dream, and woke up like after I had died in the dream. It was like, that's what dying is like. It's terrifying, but it's peaceful. It's like you come to a point where you're like, no, I don't want this to happen, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, it's going to happen, so I need to just accept it. And once you do that, it's just like, everything just like almost goes calm. You know what I'm saying? You're not like, there's no freaking out. Your brain's not like, oh my God, this is it. That you just accept it and everything goes calm. But I don't know. That was a crazy dream. Those are some crazy dreams. I still have them to this day. And yeah, I don't know. The way I try and take them is, honestly, just as you're just saying, sometimes I guess you need outside perspective, because I haven't really fully looked into them in the deep way that I feel that I would anybody else. If somebody told me, like how you just told me, like I haven't really looked at it in a deep way. I've always associated it with my fear of heights, and if I can get over my fear of heights, then I can do that, you know. Now, the only dream where I actually looked at it in that sense, or that I looked at it as I understood what it meant, was when I first started making videos and putting them on YouTube, and first started like my journey of waking up to the world and to how things really are. I had dreams about flying, on almost a nightly basis. But I could control my flying. I could basically it was really just I could jump really high. But then I had 3 or 4 dreams where I flew like Superman and I flew around the world. And I looked into those.
Were these dreams or hallucinations?
They were dreams, and they were honestly some of the most fun dreams I've ever had in my life. But I looked into them, and that meant that the sky is the limit. I also used to have these dreams where I'd be like holding on to something, and it would start to float into the air, and I'd get like 1,000 feet off the ground, and be like, I can't let go, I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? And those dreams plus the dreams of me flying, between the two of them, I've realized that they were dreams telling me that the sky is the limit for me. The only thing holding me back is myself, but I literally can reach the stars if I want to. There's nothing like I can do whatever I want. But I stopped having them, and I convinced myself in my head that meant that the sky isn't the limit anymore.
See, maybe not. Maybe it's you stopped having them because you finally understood the message.
Yeah.
And you didn't need the dream anymore.
Well, that's the thing. I now do understand that message, and maybe there was a time where I questioned it and questioned that maybe that meant that the sky isn't the limit anymore. But there came a point before that, before I even questioned it, that I was positive I knew exactly what that meant, and positive that the sky was the limit, and I am still to this day. So once the message got in me, the dream stopped. I think you're right. Once the message got in me and I understood and accepted that message, the dream stopped. And when they stopped, I'm like, oh no, does that mean the sky's not the limit anymore? And a part of me was like, what are you, an idiot? You know the sky's not the limit.
I just had a crazy epiphany. It's off topic, off show. But just wow, this conversation, just wow.
Yeah, we're done.
Wish you would have been here for this one, Rich.
Yeah. Honestly, this would have been a great show for you to get here for, Rich. There's one more thing I want to touch on. We're gonna talk about it next week. Hopefully, Rich will be here because I think he'll have some good information or some good
I know
good
he'll
insight
have an
to
opinion
this.
on it. He'll definitely have an opinion on it.
The one thing I want to touch on next week, we're going to definitely touch on the George W. Bush drunk driving incident back in, I believe, 1976, was it? Yep, 1976, near his family's Kennebunkport summer home in Maine. George Bush can party. That's all I'm going to say is George Bush can party. If you've ever seen Escape from Guantanamo Bay, how Kumar escaped from Guantanamo Bay, and you see George Bush in that, you're like, he's not that bad. He's not that bad of a party. No, I think he is that bad of a party animal. No, I think he even was when he was president, a little bit. I mean, you can't be to that extent. You can't be up there like in the middle of a press conference like, all right, everybody. So we're gonna go to war with Iraq. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think if you're going to get up there, you should be more like President Camacho in Idiocracy and just incite everybody.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Obama one day as well, and Obama can walk the walk, but definitely doesn't talk. He does the opposite of the walking when it comes to talking. He does the opposite.
Oh, he walks a walk. He walks his way to the golf greens and.
Well, I don't want to get into Obama now.
For?
We'll probably spend half a show on Obama one day, just giving people information that they probably weren't fully aware of about Obama, you know. And we won't make any conclusions on that, but at least people will have information. Whereas the regular media is never going to tell you that information, you know what I'm saying? And we're not going to focus on his birth certificate or any stupid stuff like that.
You know,
I just want to put
a lot of people never
objective information out there.
There's a lot of people that aren't even familiar with the Saturo.
Exactly. Nobody knows Barry Soetoro. I don't want to say nobody, but 99% of people that
have no idea who I'm talking about if I say Barry Soetoro.
Somebody talks about Obama or something, and I'll walk past them and say, "Yeah, Barry Soetoro, huh?" And they look at me like I'm talking about something completely different.
No, he's Hawaiian, man.
Okay, the next thing we're going to touch on George Bush being a party animal. I just want to give a little bit of the story about George Bush drinking. It really blows my mind how he is like a frat dude times 10. And has always been it blows my mind how you can go from being such a party animal to the president of the United States. Yep, like 2 minutes ago.
I'm saying, just keep it in mind.
Yep. Woman with cancer plans to take her life in Oregon. That's what we're going to talk about next week. Is one, that she doesn't have to take her life because there's cures for cancer, even though and she's from California too. That's the saddest part, is that she could easily treat herself with medical marijuana. But does her form of cancer, either one, is her form of cancer something that may not be easily treated.
It could be from
by medical marijuana. Yeah, it could be by a whole bunch of things. But the other thing is, the Oregon's Death with Dignity Act. That's why she's going to Oregon to do it, because they have a Death with Dignity Act, whereas if you're terminally ill, you can basically end your life and have lethal injection or some other way of killing yourself, so that you can die on your own terms and not when the disease says you're going to die. So and they're thinking about spreading that to other states, and that may also tie in with Ebola, or could. There's some interesting thoughts to think about with that in regards to Ebola.
Ooh,
So
I'm seeing a puzzle coming together.
yeah. I thought about that last night, so it's
Yeah,
definitely
just hit
something
me.
interesting. But on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Next week, I will also be telling you about how the first 3 episodes of the Star Wars movie saga is actually a tale of false flag terrorism and preempted pre-staged war. We'll get into that next week.
Yep, and we're probably going to touch just a little bit in relation, ever so slightly, to the Star Wars saga. We're going to touch on UFOs just a little bit, and hopefully Rich will be here so he can give us his input, or his what he believes about UFOs. I don't want to have a full-blown UFO show. Like today, we almost had a full-blown conspiracy show. But Rich, if you're not here, it's going to be hard for us to...
Yeah, we need you here to drag us back,
exactly,
man.
to pull ourselves off of that. So
That's why I was saying, what time is it? We gotta change topics.
Yeah. So I don't know. What was the topic we were going to talk about next week? Oh, UFOs. Well, I'm sorry, I zoned out for a second. Pardon me. We'll talk about UFOs. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I do want to get an idea of what you think about UFOs, what Rich thinks about UFOs. Here's the first thing I'm going to say.
I have more thoughts on the girl with cancer issue.
Oh, I know you do.
I'm going to need a week to think on
Trust
that.
me, I do. And that's why I'm saying is I literally only want to spend 5-10 minutes on UFOs next week. Because
exactly.
at the most 10 minutes. Just
that
because
is a much
I want to
bigger-
get 2 or 3 minutes of our thoughts on it each and move on. And then we'll have a more in-depth UFO show. But I think it would be good, considering that you're bringing on something about Star Wars. Even though, trust me, anybody listening or watching this it's not going to be a Star Wars where we're talking about Chewbacca and blah 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 and Yoda. Even though I think Yoda's awesome, and I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I think Yoda's awesome. It's not going to be our Star Wars
what
show.
I'll be giving you is the conspiracist theories point of view on the rise of Senator Palpatine to Chancellor Palpatine to the Emperor Palpatine you saw in Empire and Jedi.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars fan. Haven't actually ever even watched any of the Star Wars movies. I've seen clips of the early ones, the original ones.
Classics.
A little bit, like clips, but never seen the whole movies. Never really been interested in seeing the whole movies.
The prequel trilogy
Then again,
is false flag terrorism.
That
is the basis of the prequel
I was
trilogy.
a Trekkie. It's funny how all these shows, like with Star Wars, you're going to have a great article or a great you're bringing something great to the table next week about Star Wars and how it relates to the world, right? And or geopolitical politics. But same thing with Star Trek could be said for Star Trek. I was a Star Trek guy, and Star Trek is a utopia world, whereas the New World Order that you hear so much about, Star Trek is basically what would happen if New World Order came into power, everybody accepted it, everybody dealt with it, and 200 years later we're on top of the technological world because there's no more wars.
All you have to do,
language,
for that to make sense in your mind at home, all you have to do is take United Federation of Planets with their little blue and white logo and just change it to say United Nations with their little blue and white logo.
That's basically what it is, yeah. That's pretty interesting. So next week we'll touch on UFOs. We'll touch on
a lot of things.
He'll have his Star Wars thing. We'll definitely touch on the girl with cancer, planning to take her life in Oregon. Part of me wants to contact her and let her know about cancer cures, but I'd like to also. We'll talk about that next week. I almost think it might be pointless to contact her and let her know about cancer cures because I believe she's doing this for a purpose. She's doing this for a reason or for a cause, where she wants other people to have the right to be able to decide if they're terminally ill, whether or not they want to end their life on their own terms or let the disease take their life out of their own terms or off their own terms.
Sense.
So I don't know. If she's doing it for a cause, then she might even know about cancer cures and want to do this. Maybe a martyr to try and help other people in the future. And if she's doing that, I applaud her and I have so much respect for her. It's not even funny because that is amazing if she's willing to give her life to help out people in the future, knowing that there's a chance she's going to lose her life, or she's probably sure she's going to lose her life. But if she's doing that to help people in the future, then that's an amazing thing.
That's pretty honorable.
Yeah, it is. You're the only thing you got, which is your life, in order to make other people's lives a little bit better, or that other
The
people
only thing that
can end their life with a
really
little bit of
truly
dignity.
is yours that you own.
Yeah. But it also, well, we'll get into that next week. I was going to start talking about the soul, and the soul has a higher purpose sometimes than the mind or the ego.
Yes.
But we'll get into that next week.
And I'm very bad about ego.
We're going to have a whole ego and soul relation show. Probably, I'd have to say maybe episode 6 or episode 7.
Well, we also have that other one coming up where we're looking at different types of
personality disorders and the human interaction and the human,
and how it not only
it is almost a
how it
human
not only
ego
affects
thing.
the person, but the other people around them.
And that show will, trust me, it's not going to be a negative show, or it's not going to feel negative, but that will be the negative side of the human
Life is checkered. You can't
the human
take the good
brain,
without
whatever
the
you
bad.
want to call it. And the show that I'm talking about, episode 6 or 7, is going to be
Almost sounds like the
almost
polar opposite.
not the polar opposite, but it's going to be focusing on the good in humanity and where that might come from, and the soul, and the how the soul can sometimes override the brain and the ego and all of that. So I think, and I have I believe
I have some experience
I
with that.
have a little experience with it, but I also have a guest who heads up an organization that is about humanity and oneness and understanding the soul and the yin and the yang. You know what I'm saying? It's very the group is a very interesting group, and it's something definitely to check out. It's called Group of One if anybody wants to check it out. But I'm going to get the founder. She's a good friend of mine. I'm going to get her to come onto the show. Unfortunately, she's in England, so we'll have to have her on Skype. But I'm going to get her to come onto the show, and I think that'll be a really good show too. So anytime you see a show and we're covering one topic and you feel like, oh, well, why are they covering just the negative aspect? Don't ever worry, because we will eventually cover the positive aspect too. And it's definitely never going to be, just because it's covering what feels like a negative aspect, we're going to bring our own level of positivity to it. So it's going to be an awesome thing. So on that note, I think we should wrap it up. It's about that time. Rich, I would really love to see you next week. I guess he did have a prior engagement or emergency engagement that he had to attend to today. But next week, I really hope you're here, because the show is not the same without you, bud. So come on by, and we'll get it done. I'd like to thank everybody else for checking us out.
As great of a co-host as Alf
Alf
was,
is a great co-host.
He filled in wonderfully.
He's a great co-host, but
he's not rich.
He must have been gagging on or chewing on a cat all show or something, because I don't know why he didn't really have any input. And I'd rather have a third host that has some input. So thank you for joining us. It's been a wonderful show. We'll see you next Sunday at 8 p.m. You can catch us on Facebook at 3NN Podcast, facebook.com/3NN Podcast. You can message us on there. I believe Brian also has a 3NN email now, a Hotmail.
Brian3NN at Hotmail.
There you go. We also have a 3NN page up on YouTube. I don't believe this episode will be up on there, but next week's episode should. There's still a little bit of work to be done on it, but we do have that, and I think it's going to be youtube.com/3NN Podcast.
So for now, it's the Nick Tesla channel?
Yes, so for now, if you want to find
And I'm sharing them to mine as well. So.
Yep, if you want to find him on Facebook, Brian McFadden. If you want to find me on Facebook, I'm Nick Tesla. Anything else? Let's see.
Rich Colazzo.
If you want to find Rich Colazzo, he's on Facebook under Rich Colazzo. If you want to find a YouTube page, just type into Google Nick Tesla YouTube, and it'll come up. You'll see one that'll say Nick Tesla. You'll see a whole bunch of videos about Nikola Tesla, but one of them is Nick Tesla. Or you can just type in 3NN and 3NN YouTube, something like that, and it'll definitely come up. I tried that last week. I just put in 3NN. Well, there's the first result. Our premiere show was the first result to come up. Number one result.
Moving up in the world.
So, honestly, I think that says something that we have a very unique and a good name. So on that note, everybody, have a great week. I thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week.
Yes, have a great week. We're trying to figure out, one of these days we'll come up with
come
a
up
great
with
send-off. Like, all right, oh, middle fingers to the sky, or something like that. I don't know. We'll come up with something. But until then, have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Keep it real.